Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's edition of our Virtual is a New Reality series, Cooking with Arash. And tonight he's going to be focusing on vegetables. My name is Franklin. I'm one of the two co-founders of NorCal SCI. And as usual, these presentations are made possible through a grant that we received from the Reeve Foundation. So we're grateful to them for that. As always, a couple of housekeeping items. Everyone is unmuted, so that's why you're not hearing any noise in the background. Um, if you have any questions, and I hope that you will, and I'm sure you will, because Arash is going to give you a pretty good sort of tour of his kitchen and what he's able to do with the various sort of recipes that he's got going. We will have a Q&A session at the end for about 10 minutes or so, and we'll be able to feed your questions to Arash. And if you could just use the chat feature on your Zoom screen, that'll be the best way of doing that. And then finally, as always, we have these presentations recorded. So in case if you need to jump off the presentation tonight at any point, no worries. We're going to wait to send them to you until Friday morning because we have a presentation on Thursday with Shelley Wood. She's going to be doing a fruits and supplements presentation. And I think it'll be good for everyone to get both tonight's as well as Thursday's recording together on Friday. So rest assured that you will have everything in your inbox on Friday morning. Okay, so without further ado, let me kind of get started. Arash experienced a C5, C6 incomplete spinal cord injury in 2012 as a result of a fall. He has given countless presentations and talks and shared his story of perseverance, recovery, and challenging limits to audiences large and small, including a TEDx talk. He's a Bay Area native and credits his California upbringing for his love of the outdoors, nature, and cooking, activities that he still cherishes very much as he continues to travel, explore, and enjoy new experiences. He is married with a daughter and a second baby on the way in a few weeks. And also in the interest of full transparency, he serves on NorCal SCI's board of directors. So is he not only a great contributor to our organization, but he's also a good friend. So I'm thrilled to have Arash with us again tonight. So take it away.
Thank you, Franklin. And as always, very, very kind introduction. I really appreciate that. It's really an honor and pleasure for me to be able to do this presentation and be a part of this this wonderful series. Vegetables, tonight's topic. I'm super excited. I hope you all are too, whether you're watching live or recorded, because vegetables are obviously a huge, huge part of my personal diet. And based on if we're following Shelley's guidelines, they should be a big part of everyone else's diets as well. I think we all realize how important they are to overall health in general, and then especially for spinal cord injury. As always, the thing we always talk about in terms of digestion and everything, it's so important to integrate vegetables. So I bring that up because this is not going to be the only presentation on vegetables. I can guarantee you that. There's no way I could do a 1-hour presentation on vegetables on such a large topic. There are so many different types, so many different recipes. So I'm going to focus tonight's session. Thank you, Franklin. Whatever you just did was helpful. I'm going to focus tonight's session on some general things and some tips and tricks that I use for vegetable preparation, some of the more common used vegetables and things that are easy to obtain. I brought this up, I think, in past presentations as well. Please, if you are watching and if you, whether it's live or not, but if you like the format or don't, let us know. If you prefer me to do more like a recipe or two from beginning to end, I'm happy to do that. I'm just continuing to do what I think is most helpful. But if you prefer a different thing for the future, please do let us know. Give us the feedback. Give me the feedback. It really helps me to know what is most helpful for all of you, because in tonight's presentation, I'll do a little bit of cooking and whatnot as well, but I really do think it's more useful. Again, I always say there's a million videos of other people, of people cooking and making recipes. So I don't think it's as useful to, you know, do like what exactly the recipes are. For me, it's more, I think it's more helpful to share with you my tricks for being efficient and capable in the kitchen in whatever manner you decide to do the cooking. So, okay, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about vegetables. I've selected a few vegetables tonight. First of all, as I always say, if you haven't watched or haven't yet caught up on Shelly's last presentation, the one that she did on vegetables, I highly recommend you do watch that. It's super, super helpful. And as always, we are working in coordination with each other because, you know, understanding the types of things you should be eating according to Shelly's expert advice, which I fully agree with, is obviously helpful to understand what you want to cook. So, yeah, so the vegetables I picked tonight are very much in support of what Shelly talked about last time. Some of the vegetables she highlighted in her presentation, those happen to be some of my favorite vegetables. Honestly, I kind of like all vegetables. There's almost nothing I don't like. So we're going to talk about that. But I did want to make sure that what we discussed are generally easy things to find. I don't want to share things with you about really esoteric vegetables or things that are like out of season right now. I like to cook with the seasons. I like to generally eat what's available now. And so I do put a lot of thought into picking things that are available to everybody, that are inexpensive, that are easy to find relatively. So yeah, let's see. Let's start with a couple of points before I jump into the actual vegetables. A couple of tools that I think are really, really, really important. Shelly always highlights the importance of obviously eating, getting so much of, you know, a good amount of your calories from vegetables, and I fully agree. And one of the ways to do that, and I think one of the things that I find when I hear friends and people get hiccups and get kind of confused by how to eat more vegetables or eat healthier, is like how to prep and how to do things, and they get kind of intimidated. But one of the best tools that I want to share with you to make all of this a little bit easier is something that I'm actually very surprised at how many people or how many houses I've been to that don't have this. So if you do, kudos to you, but I'm going to show you this lovely piece of equipment, kitchen equipment. This is a salad spinner, nothing fancy. You can get them for as cheap as $5. This one has definitely seen better days. It's kind of been on the verge of falling apart for a while, but it still works, so I still use it. But the reason why the salad spinner is so important is that if you don't have a salad spinner, I honestly don't know how you're washing your herbs and lettuce and salad greens and that kind of thing. Maybe you're buying the bag kind, that's fine, totally good. But you can save a lot of money by just buying heads of lettuce and bunches of herbs and you know, getting a lot more bang for your buck. So I'm not, as if you've seen me before, I try not to say, you know, anything is like super essential. I'm pretty flexible with everything that I do in the kitchen, but I would say this is pretty much a requirement if you want to, you know, integrate vegetables into your cooking. Get yourself a salad spinner, wash your lettuce, wash your herbs yourself. It's a lot less expensive. It's easy, and I'm going to show you a trick on how I make it really, really, really efficient to prep some of these things. So yeah, I definitely think this is essential. Oh, and I want to actually show that with this particular one, if you have like, you know, weak hands, I have pretty good hands. They're not totally 100%, but I can do most things. But even if you have less function, one of the things I like about this is that the mechanism for spinning is just pushing it. So if you have like just wrists, and obviously I do it on my lap, but I'm just showing you right here. You know, you can easily get this thing. It's spinning around right now. So whatever you have in there, you can get it to work. So I really like this piece of equipment. I think it's really, really essential for being able to, integrate vegetables into your cooking. A couple of small things I'll mention is other, I think, must-haves. Again, these are things I really, really think you need to have in your kitchen, even if you're just a basic level cook. You got to have a good vegetable peeler. This is the kind I like. It tends to work well for me. I also like that it's got a thick handle because, again, I have decent grip, not the best, but for me, like a thicker handle works better. They also make adaptive peelers as well that if you have less hand function, I know there's ways to be able to use a peeler. And so super, super important. I think this is another essential piece of equipment. The last one I'll mention, and I'm proud to share it because even the most skilled chefs often say that this is one of their favorite pieces of equipment, but this is just a box grater. That's what it's known in kitchen lore, but it's simple, cheap piece of equipment, very, very helpful. I remember it as a kid for grating cheese to make pizzas at home. But this is especially helpful for vegetables because a lot of great recipes and a lot of ways to make vegetables exciting and fun and not boring is to do different things with them. So grating vegetables, making them into like little fritters and, grating them for salads. I love grating carrots and then putting them into different salads. For example, a million ways to use this, but this is another really great piece of equipment. I'm actually not going to use it tonight, but I did want to highlight it for all of you right now. So definitely get your hands on a box grater, a peeler, a salad spinner, and you will be good to go. So I've got my little background here. I've got some veggies here, and I'm going to flip the camera in just a moment. But I'm going to start with sweet potatoes. Again, I pick vegetables that I think are available and easy to find for most people. And I love sweet potatoes. I cook with them quite a bit. My 2-year-old daughter loves them, which makes me more prone to cook with them as well. They're inexpensive. They're easy to find. When you buy them, if you keep them in your fridge, they can last for weeks. I've sometimes kept them for probably almost a month in the fridge and kind of forgotten and come back and they're totally fine. Or maybe they've gotten a little funky at one end and I just cut that part off and keep working. But luckily, these are nice, fresh sweet potatoes. I bought 2 different kinds just to show you. There's a lot of different kinds out there. There's purple and white and red and orange, different colors. This is kind of the more standard sweet potato you'll find. I like them bigger rather than smaller. And there's an important reason for that, which I'll share with you in just a minute. This is another one. I can't even remember now. I know the skin is this color. Oh, see, it's orange in the middle. Sometimes the skin's this color and then it's purple. They call them like Japanese sweet potatoes. So these are great too. So this one's orange on the inside, red on the outside. Really pretty as well. Really kind of nice color for your food. But the reason why I like big sweet potatoes is that if I'm going to peel a sweet potato, I'd rather peel one big one than like 4 little ones. So it's just a matter of what I always talk about, like really being efficient with time and cooking. So I like larger sweet potatoes. And if you want to know why sweet potatoes are healthy, look it up or look back at Shelly's presentation. I know she talked about them a little bit. I know she's also a really big fan. You can do so much with them. They're so versatile. What I'm going to do today is actually a kind of a newer thing I learned only recently, which just shows that even if you're cooking a long time, you can always learn new things. But I'm going to actually steam some sweet potatoes. Yeah, so to talk about one last thing about these before I get them cut up and ready is that Shelly talked a little bit about this too, organic and not, when to buy organic, when not. I try to buy organic as much as I can, as long as it's not costly, too much costlier. Sweet potatoes is a good place to buy organic because it's usually not much more expensive, depending on where you go. And the reason I bring that up is not just that it's healthier, obviously, to eat organic and avoid some of the pesticides, but it makes prepping a little bit easier. So if I have organic sweet potatoes like I do here, I'm more willing to not have to peel them because I'm not worried about like the pesticides and chemicals that are on the skin. Whereas if I have a non-organic conventional sweet potato or any vegetable for that point, I'm going to want to wash it really well. I'm going to want to peel it. So in this case, the peels don't look too bad. I'm going to maybe keep it on. I'll probably peel one and not the other, and just for the sake of variety. So and I'm going to get these steaming. So if I can ask my lovely camera woman, please. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually steam these sweet potatoes. And I'm using a bamboo steamer. These are used really frequently in Chinese cooking and a lot of Southeast Asian. They're great because they cost like, I don't know, like very little money. I think they're like $2 or $3 or something if you get them. They're really, really great. And what's cool about them too is you can kind of stack them on top of each other. You could have 3 or 4 of them and steam a bunch of stuff all at the same time. So I'm going to use this. Steaming is a really great way to cook anything because it obviously you're not using any oil or fat, so it's very, very healthy. So I am going to get a couple of, I have 2 of these things here, so I'm going to get some slices of sweet potatoes ready, put them in there, get them steaming, and then move on to my next item. But back to my point about the skin, like I like this skin. I'm going to make it really, really easy on myself. And so I'm just going to slice this sweet potato, probably only about 1/3 or 1/2 of it because I don't have too much space, into like 1/2-inch slices. Obviously, the bigger slices or bigger pieces you have, the longer it'll take to cook. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to get too crazy. But in this case, I'm just going to slice. This is a nice big sweet potato, nice and straight, not any funky angles or anything. So I'm just really going to keep it easy. I'm going to just slice it into pieces, and as I always say, make sure your knife is sharp. Everything's ready. And this is so versatile too, guys. This is just like when you, again, I'm making something simple and showing you because I want you to have the flexibility to do whatever you want. If you want to eat it plain, if you want to put some sauce on it, if you want to put this with like some other veggies, you can do that. So you see that was only about 1/3 of this sweet potato, and I already pretty much have filled up the steamer. I probably shouldn't pack it in too much because the steam's coming in from the bottom. So if I overfill this, then parts of it won't get cooked. But I've got one there. I'm not doing anything to it, just simple as that. I've got my other one here ready. So for this one, I will peel it just for almost an example. Otherwise, I would be fine doing this because it is organic and because I washed it. I think I said this, but if I don't peel any vegetable, it means I washed it really well. Even if it is organic. So keep that in mind. So this is why you need to have a vegetable peeler, because if you just rely on buying veggies that are like pre-cut and peeled, and there's nothing wrong with that. Those are great. They're super convenient. I've talked about them in some of my previous sessions. I totally encourage it. But if you're, if you want to definitely get the most value, and I know Shelly's big on that too, for your cooking, buying the whole vegetable and prepping it yourself is going to get you the best value. But it's also, you're going to get the best quality product because you're not getting something when you buy like a bag of pre-cut like butternut squash or pre-cut vegetables or something. That's fine, but that could have been prepped a week ago and put into a plastic bag and vacuum sealed. And so it's still good. By all means, it's better to eat that than like canned or, not at all. But it's really great to just get your veggies as fresh as you can. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to do some slices of peeled. I'm going to actually probably feed some of this to my daughter, and so we'll see which color she goes for more tonight. If she's more into the orange or these white ones. And if you don't have a bamboo steamer, that's fine. You can use any steamer, a metal steamer. And if you don't have any kind of steamer, then get one. They're really easy to find, and it's a good tool to have for your kitchen. So yeah. So there you go. I've got my two things of sweet potatoes, white and orange, right here, ready to go. And I just stack them on top of each other. And let's see. Yeah, I'll just show you what I'm doing over here. So here, this is how you can steam anything. I've just got a frying pan that's big enough to hold this. I've got enough water in there, a couple of inches of water to make it work. But that's all you really need to steam. So I'm literally, I like to keep it at kind of a medium heat. So you see it's bubbling, but it's not like going crazy. And again, you can do this with a pot, with a pan, with anything. It's not hard. And I just stick this carefully because it's hot right in here. And grab my lid. Put the lid on. That's it. So I'm going to give that about 5 or 6 minutes, check on it in a few, but that's how you can pretty much steam anything. I can do that with broccoli. I'll steam greens. You know, if you want to steam other things, if you eat seafood, if you steam fish, this is a great way to steam fish and then add your sauces and flavors to it. So it's a super, super healthy way of eating because as you see, it's just water in the vegetable. You're not adding any oil or salt or any of the bad stuff. You figure that out later on. So let's go back over here and get working on our next vegetable. I was almost gonna not do this because my cauliflower probably spent a couple days too long in the fridge, and you know, it's starting to get a little bit of a color on the outside, and I was like, well, that's not the prettiest thing. But then I realized, you know, this is a very real thing. I bought this cauliflower, I think 2 weeks ago, and it's just been in the fridge, and I kind of forgot about it, and that happens. We all do that sometimes. I'm trying not to waste any food, and I rarely, you know, let something go really bad. But this is a common thing. But you know, if this happens, like, don't freak out. Not a big deal. So I decided, you know what, let's just stick with the plan, and I'm just going to show how I'm going to roast this cauliflower. So option 1 was steaming, what I'm doing with the sweet potatoes. Option 2 here is roasting. I've got a little mini baking sheet because I'm using my toaster oven. If you don't know, I'm a big fan of my toaster oven. I talked about it in a previous cooking session. But I'm going to use this. I put some aluminum foil on it. I'm going to stick that in my toaster oven and roast up some cauliflower. This isn't even actually for tonight. I'm just going to roast this up because it needs to be roasted. And I'm going to tomorrow maybe put it into tacos. You can make cauliflower tacos, put it into a salad, whatever you want. Again, I'm not doing the strict recipe. I'm just showing you the method and allowing you to run with it. So in this case, I've got a little browning on the outside of the cauliflower. So all I do is I just trim that off. No big deal. This happens to all of us. And again, we have to just be easy on ourselves in the kitchen, you know. We all make mistakes. We all forget about things or buy something and then realize we have it. But yeah, it looks a little funky like that, but it's pretty much good as new now. So to cut up a cauliflower, there's a couple things you can do. This is really tight, and if you don't have good hands, it's almost hard to break it up. You could just kind of grab and break up the florets like that. But what I like to do in this case, and this is something if you have decent knife skills, so I like to cut this stem out, and then allows me a little more flexibility to get in there. So what I do is I'm going to go at an angle, and I'm going to cut the cauliflower stem out because I don't want that. That's not too tasty. So I'm going to go in a circle and basically see I'm just kind of gently going around, plucking these leaves off. And it's probably easier with a smaller knife, but I'm lazy, I'm using the same knife. I tend to use the same knife for everything. So I got a lot of it out. There's the stem, compost that. These leaves, cauliflower leaves aren't very tasty. So I'm gonna kind of go back in here and cut this out. Okay, and I think I like that because it gives me a little more flexibility. I don't like just cutting cauliflower because it has these nice florets that are really easy to get instead of like slicing it into pieces. And then I can kind of just start cutting into it, breaking it up, and you've got these little florets. So this piece again, the stem, oops, I dropped a piece, it's all right. Grab that later. And see, now I've got these smaller pieces. When I'm roasting cauliflower, a piece like this is a little too big. I want it a little bit smaller, about this size. So I just kind of break it up into these smaller pieces. If you don't like cauliflower, I encourage you to give it another try. It's super, super tasty. Any of these root vegetables, cauliflower, broccoli, they're so, so good when you cook them right. And I think a lot of people maybe haven't had some of these veggies cooked the right way, so they think they don't like them. If they just had them boiled, or when we were kids, people would, I don't know, do silly things like just boil broccoli and until it's like mushy, and then how are you expected to like that? That doesn't sound very appetizing to me. But cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, some of these like really hearty vegetables that like are not at all like sexy, although cauliflower is really trendy these days. They're so good. They're so sweet. When you roast them in the oven, they become so sweet. Got a little bit more of that black stuff here, so I'm just trimming that off. So I'm just getting everything to about the same size. That's all I'm doing. So I told you this was kind of the ideal size. So I've got these, and maybe one more here. So yeah, want everything about the same size. I'm going to roast it in the oven, which is why that's important. If you have things with a lot of different sizes, then you're going to end up with some burnt pieces and some raw pieces. So I'm just using a little bit of olive oil spray. It is important to use that here so that it doesn't stick to the aluminum foil. And all I'm going to do is take my cauliflower off my lap, put it onto my pan here. Anytime you're roasting vegetables, this is an important point that I'll share that goes for pretty much anything. Try to make whatever pan or anything you're using, make sure it's large enough to easily accommodate the vegetable. If you pack vegetables in like this, let's say if you had like twice as much of this and you pack it all in and then you stick it in the oven, it's not gonna, it'll cook fine. The difference is that because it's closer together, vegetables have a lot of water in them and they release that liquid. So what ends up happening is you end up kind of half steaming, half roasting vegetables. That's why people might roast vegetables and they'll be like, why am I not getting that nice char, that like roasted flavor where the sweetness of the vegetables come out? So this is a really, really important tip. I can't recommend it enough. And this goes for any kind of vegetables, not just cauliflower, but really anything. Make sure you have space in your pan. So you see I got plenty of space. So that means now when the heat of the oven hits this, it's gonna cook the vegetable, it's gonna roast it, it's gonna give it brown and black color, which is beautiful and tasty and delicious, instead of steaming into like this like soft, end product. So that's it. I've got my cauliflower here. I'm gonna give it one more quick spray of olive oil, just a little bit, not too much. I've got my salt and pepper hiding down here. I'm just going to do a little seasoning with just a teeny pinch of salt. Just sprinkle it on. You can add whatever spices you want, or you can flavor it later. Because I'm not totally sure what I'm going to do with my cauliflower, I might make it into tacos tomorrow night, or I might have it for like a salad. I'm keeping it simple. I'm not seasoning it now too much. Just kind of tossing it around. And then based on what I decide to do with it, then I'll kind of go with what kind of flavor I want. So this is going to go into a toaster oven. 400 degrees until it's cooked. Usually takes about 25 to 35 minutes, depends on the oven and the vegetable, but I'll just keep an eye on it. And once it starts to get that brown color, that's good. That's when it gets sweet and tasty. And if I want it even crispier, I might turn up the heat at the end and kind of give it a little blast of heat. Roasted cauliflower is awesome, guys. Really, just if you haven't gotten into it, give it a try. It's delicious. And this method, what I just did, you could do the same thing with broccoli. You could do the same thing with Brussels sprouts. Really pretty much any vegetable, but especially this time of year, these are good winter vegetables to eat. So I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna check on my sweet potatoes real quick. So if you want to come on over and let's just see, now we're going in real time. We'll just lift the lid off. It's hot, I forgot, almost burned my fingers a little bit. So I'm just looking at the sweet potatoes to see they're still a little raw. I can tell just by looking. Remember, I said in a previous session, cooking is an experience for all 5 of your senses. It's not just touch and smell and touch and look. I can tell these are a little bit tough, but if I'm unsure, I can take my tongue and kind of poke it a little bit, or a fork and poke the middle. It's getting close. It's just another minute or so, but these are pretty darn close. So I'm going to keep a close eye on those. Turn that off in just a couple of minutes. So let me get my cutting board cleaned off and move on to vegetable number 3 for tonight. So Shelly talked about this quite a bit in her last session on vegetables. And this is one of my favorite vegetables, hands down. I can't get enough of this stuff. And if you have not had or have not cooked with chard before, I'm telling you, it's time to start. It's often called Swiss chard. I don't really know why. I don't think the Swiss have anything to do with it. And all of our chard gets grown here in California. So Swiss chard or not, it's chard. And it looks like this. If you haven't seen it or bought it before, it's a leafy green. We all know how good leafy greens are for us. They're super, super, super healthy. And I get a little frustrated with the fact that kale seems to get all the glory these days. It's so trendy and everyone wants to talk about kale. Kale's fine. I like kale. I don't actually honestly think it's my favorite at all leafy green. I think chard is a million times better than kale. Kale you can eat raw. You can make, as people might know, kale salads and kale Caesar and etc., which I do like. Chard you do need to cook. So that's maybe one disadvantage. But chard is so much better when it's cooked than kale or even spinach or any of these other leafy greens. And again, guys, if you haven't, if you're like, oh, I don't eat leafy greens, I don't know how to, I don't know if I like them. Trust me, cook them a couple times the way I'm going to show you. It's hard not to like them. They become sweet and juicy. They melt. And if you really still don't like the flavor, hide them. I have nothing against hiding vegetables. Make a pot of soup, like I did in my last session. I made a simple veggie soup, and just throw some chopped up greens in there, and they won't make your soup taste that different, and you'll take in your nutrition of the leafy greens that way. And my God, I mean, there's pretty much nothing else out there that is as nutritious for you than leafy greens like kale and chard and spinach and collard greens. And so these are my favorite. They call them, I got rainbow chard because they have different colored stems. As you can see, there's orange and red. Side note, I'm keeping track of my sweet potatoes. I know they're done now. So I'm just going to turn off the heat. You can stay right there. But I know those are done. I'm turning off the heat. And I'm letting those cool off naturally. So back to our chard. Okay. You might look at this and be like, okay, what do I do with this? The stems of the chard are definitely edible. Whereas another thing about difference with kale is kale stems really aren't that tasty or edible, whereas chard stems are super tasty. What I do though is I do trim off like the bottom inch or two of the stems because those can be kind of really tough. So I just take the whole bunch of chard, and I cut off about the first, the bottom couple inches. Get rid of that. Now I've got these nice big leaves, but like, look at this stem. Like, it's like 3 inches wide. Like, what am I going to do with that? Or if I chop this up like this with the stem on, then the stem's going to be raw and the leaves are going to be cooked, and it's not right. So it's a little bit of an extra step, but it's well worth it. So I'm going to show you the best way to do it. So there's a couple ways to get rid of the stem. One way is to lay the green, and again, this goes for any leafy green. Lay it flat down. I like this method because it's safe and easy. I use the pointy end of my knife, and I just cut almost all the way down on each side. It's almost like a really long triangle, and I cut the stem right out. And I put that aside because I'm going to use that. I'm going to eat that. It's tasty. It's good. And now I've got my nice leaf right here. So same thing with the smaller leaf. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just using my pointy end. And I don't have to go all the way down. It's fine. As long as I get the majority of it, and I can even just pull it off or snap it off. See, now I've got leaf and stem. So another way you can do it is kind of with your hand. I've done this sometimes. It's a little less precise, but it's a little quicker. Is I just kind of grab the stem and I grab both ends of the leaves and I just pull down. See, now I've got the leaf and the stem right here. Look at this big wide thing. I mean, this is crazy. So it's a little bit harder when the stem is so wide. But now I've got my nice leaves here, and only a couple more to go. I'm just going to do these quickly. Let's see. And the stems are they're super tasty. You want to use them. The only thing to keep in mind is that they cook at different times. The leaves are going to cook much quicker than the stem. So especially with something like so thick, I'm actually going to cut this in half. And then what I do, another one here. So I've got 3 or 4 stems here. And now I just kind of stack them up on top of each other. And I slice them into small pieces. And if you're slow, do it slow. If you're fast, do it fast. There are methods to do this. It takes practice. You notice I always keep my fingers curled under, so I'm never going to chop my finger off. These are little tricks that come with practice. So now, and I'm super efficient with saving time, and I've already got my pan heating up while I'm doing this with you. So I'm finishing up my chopping and prepping as I'm getting the pan ready. So let's just chop up the rest of these stems. All right, look at that, beautiful. Different colors, it's really pretty. It's and when you cook these down, they get soft, they get almost like melty. You can do this for like a soup. You can do this for like, I put leafy greens like chard into like chili, or anything that I'm just trying to give a little boost of nutrition to. So I've got my stems chopped up here, ready to go. I'm gonna kind of just push them off to the side, and then I'm gonna take a couple of my leaves of chard. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This will all cook down. And I'm just gonna chop this up roughly. Okay, as you see, I run out of space. Yes, the lap is limited that way, but by all means, I still think the best way to cook when you're a wheelchair user is to put the cutting board on the lap. It's not even a question to me. Trust me, I've tried everything myself. There is nothing that gives you as much control and flexibility as doing it this way. So that's it. I've got my frying pan heating up. I've got my greens chopped. I've got my stems chopped. So I'm just making some sauteed chard here. Move move my spinner so you can see me here. And this can be a side dish. This could be a, you can add more stuff to it. I'm actually maybe going to add something else to it. But first, I've got my pan nice and hot. I've got some olive oil, just about a tablespoon of olive oil in there. It's already hot because my pan was already hot. And I'm going to go right in with my stems. Hear that sizzle? That's beautiful. I've got my tongs, my favorite tool. And I just kind of spread them out, get those cooking. So in this case, I'm going to make it into a side dish. So I am going to add one other thing to it. And the reason I wanted to show you is a couple things. So I've got a few mushrooms. I like the combination of mushrooms with leafy greens. It also takes it from being just greens to something else. But the other reason I wanted to share this with you, again, this session is all about tips and tricks and things that I do, is that mushrooms, prepping them, it's important, what I do. So if you see mushrooms, you always buy them, they have the stems on there. Some people keep the stems on. I personally don't love like having like a tough, chewy stem on all my mushrooms. So I like to take the stems off and you just kind of pop them off. But I don't throw them away. And the same goes with another vegetable that I use frequently. And the same goes with like a broccoli stem. The same goes with ends of carrots. This is a larger point that I want to make, which is that any kind of vegetable trimmings that I have, so mushroom stems, anything like that, I put those in a bag, in just like a normal plastic bag, and I stick them in the freezer. Why do I do that? Because then when I want to make vegetable stock, I want to make soup, or I want to make chicken stock or whatever, I do vegetable stock. I just take a bag from the freezer that has a bunch of vegetable parts in it. I throw it in a pot, I fill it with water, and I'm ready to go. I talked about stock in a previous session, so make sure you watch that if you want. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I made that point really because it's such a time saver, and it's just a way to get the most use out of all your vegetables. Don't throw things away. You can use almost any part, even those ends of the chard stems that I didn't use. I meant to put those with my other trimmings and put those into the freezer. So my freezer is kind of like half full of random bags of vegetable trimmings. So I'm gonna grab my mushrooms. I'm gonna grab my chard. I'm gonna come over here. Now I've had a couple minutes for my stems to cook. So these are starting to soften up a little bit. And I have a little bit of garlic that I chopped up previously. I'm gonna throw that in here, some chopped up garlic. Give it a little mix. And you see, by giving the stems like a few minute heads up, or a few minutes, advanced cooking from the leaves, everything cooks really nicely. So now I'm going to add some mushrooms in here. Again, you don't have to do it if you don't like mushrooms. I just wanted to because I like them and they go really well with greens. And I wanted to really show you the point about the stems and trimmings. So I've got my mushrooms here. Now I've got the leaves of the kale. I'm just going to dump those right on top. Like that. And I know it seems like it's like overflowing out of the pan, but this cooks down. These greens release a lot of liquid, and they'll be just fine. I'm going to give it just a pinch of salt to get everything going. And I'm going to turn the heat down to medium. And before I change my camera view, I just wanted to show you one more thing. You want to come over here and see my sweet potatoes, all nicely cooked. steamed sweet potatoes ready to go. Try not to burn my hands. 2 different colors, just like that. You saw how easy that was. You can do anything with those that you want. So those are done. Setting those off. My cauliflower is going to roast in the toaster oven, as I mentioned. And we've got chard going on the pan with some garlic and mushrooms. And you see, just in a matter of minutes, we already got 3 different dishes going because that's how I roll. So I'm going to flip the camera around and do some more talking. So let's see. All right. A couple things I wanted to mention as I let my veggies do their cooking here is another really easy way to integrate vegetables and nutrition into your diet. As always with spinal cord injury, I talk about this pretty much every time, and I know none of us are strangers to this, but digestion and bowel program, all of this is super important. And the way I've found, the reason I pretty much have gone towards a almost strictly plant-based diet, with a few exceptions, but is because I feel better than ever. My energy's great, my digestion is great, and it's because I eat a ton of vegetables. So these things I'm making here tonight, they're not just like things that are like random for me. These are things that I make all the time, this kind of eating. And again, I hope giving you like the canvas and allowing you to paint what you want, allowing you to cook the vegetables that you want is helpful. But I do want to mention one other thing before I open it up to some questions, which is herbs. Guys, herbs are one of the best ways to get nutrition into your diet. And I'm not just talking about dried herbs that come in the jar. Those are fine. But dried herbs don't have a lot of nutritional value. They have good flavor and they make your food taste good. But try to find ways of integrating fresh herbs into your diet. I'm lucky I come from a culture of cooking that we use an insane amount of herbs. We might use 10 or 12 bunches of herbs for one dish. In Iranian cooking, we're just like obsessed with herbs. But it's a really great way to increase your nutrition. Much how I was talking about chard, and we all know about how kale, like I was saying, everyone knows how healthy kale is. Chard is just as healthy, if not more. But parsley is one of the best things you can eat. It's so good for you. It's a natural digestion aid. Cilantro, basil, mint, they're all so good. They're inexpensive. It's such a great way to add flavor to your food. I'm going to talk more about them in future sessions, but back to the point about the spinner, I just wanted to highlight how important the spinner and can be for integrating herbs, because a bunch of herbs like this costs 49 cents. Okay, I know Shelly likes me to talk about the value of food. 49 cents for a bunch of cilantro. For organic, it's like maybe twice the cost or something, but this is a lot of cilantro, but I'm going to use 3 or 4 bunches of herbs for some of the things that I make. I'm going to add some herbs to a sauce I might make. I'm going to throw a handful of chopped up cilantro or parsley to a soup that I make. If I'm making rice, if I'm making a stir fry, I try to find an excuse to integrate herbs into my cooking as much as possible because they taste great, it's fresh, and if you know how to take care of your herbs, they will take care of you. So I obviously can talk a little bit more about that, but let me give you all a chance. If there are any questions so far, I'd be happy to take those as I give my chard a quick stir in the pan. So
Okay.
Any questions so far?
There are a few. So what is going to be the ultimate way that you're going to serve the chard and the mushrooms?
The ultimate way I'm going to serve it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just going to let it saute a little bit more. As you saw, I added just a tiny pinch of salt so far. I'm waiting for the chard, and I'll show you in a minute when it gets there, but I'm waiting for the leaves to wilt down a little bit. Then I'm going to put some lemon juice, just from a lemon that I squeezed, into that, and that's it. Salt, maybe a little bit of pepper too. Salt, pepper, and lemon juice with chard, and have that as a side dish. If you're making pasta with tomato sauce, if you're making something that, let's say, like doesn't have as many vegetables in it, you can feel less guilty by eating a side dish of a ton of greens like I'm making right here. So that's what I'm going to do. This is kind of like my go-to way, whether it's kale or chard or collard greens or spinach. It's exactly how you saw me make it. Just olive oil, garlic, whatever green I'm making, a little bit of salt and pepper, and some lemon juice, or if you don't have lemon juice, any kind of vinegar. A little bit of acid at the end just allows everything to pop and brightens the flavor of the leafy greens. So that's like my go-to way of making greens. You don't have to do anything more fancy to it than that. So keeping it simple.
Okay. All right. And our resident dietitian, who is also in this presentation, she said that the Swiss chard origin was a Swiss botanist who gave the plant its scientific name, hence the name Swiss chard.
All right.
All right. So question, this person says, I love cauliflowers, but the effects of it on my digestive system are just, I cannot deal with them. What have you found to work best with the feeling of bloating and gas that it tends to cause?
Yeah, there's no hiding it. That cauliflower is in a category of vegetable called brassicas. That includes like cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. They're all related, and they're really, really good for you. And yes, let's be honest, they make you gassy. They might make you fart. To me, that's just it doesn't bother me. There are
That's just the
things you
price
can
of
do.
admission, huh?
That's just the price of admission for having. Think about it like this, guys. I totally get that. And if it hurts your stomach, that's a different thing. Then talk to Shelly, talk to a professional. Like that's a different thing. But if it's just making you a little bit gassy, remember that that's the price you pay for having a much smoother and easier, let's say, bowel program and experience. I'm always shocked by how people, not just with cauliflower or something, but like people say, I don't want to eat lentils because they make me gassy. It's like, well, that means they're doing their job. That means they're helping, they're cleaning out your stomach and your intestines of all the bad stuff in there. That's why. And so for us spinal cord injury people, the reason I'm okay with it and I deal with it is because, again, just to be very straightforward and honest about the down and dirty of it, I have a much easier time with bowels and all of that and digestion. But I get that. I understand that sometimes that can be the case. I do find that sometimes if you're not used to eating a lot of fiber, I know we talked about this in a previous session. If you're not used to eating a lot of fiber, if you're not used to eating a lot of fresh vegetables or cauliflower, sometimes just eating it more frequently will get your body used to it. If you're used to not taking that in and then all of a sudden you eat a plate of cauliflower, then yeah, it might be hard on your stomach. But that's just because sadly, many of us have been conditioned to eat, the American diet, which is a diet that's generally pretty unhealthy. So our stomachs are not used to eating massive amounts of Brussels sprouts or broccoli or cauliflower. And when you start eating those things more frequently, your body gets used to them in general.
Okay.
So that's maybe not the best advice, but that's the advice I can give.
All right, real quick, give us a tip on how you would make a cauliflower taco. What else would you add to the taco?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll roast that cauliflower in the oven. Like I said, I didn't add much flavor to it. And then tomorrow or whenever I want to make the tacos, what I'll do is I can keep them just like super simple seasoned like that. And then if I know I'm going to add other things to the taco to make it taste good. So if I have like a nice salsa or a pico de gallo or some guac or something, I might not do anything. I might just heat up that cauliflower the next day, heat it up in the oven so it kind of crisps up and warms up again, and put that in a taco and add whatever else I'm going to add. If it's chopped up lettuce or salsa or guac or whatever it is. And then the cauliflower becomes the star of the taco. It's replacing like the meat that some people might feel like is necessary, which it totally isn't. So,
okay. All right, next question.
I'm gonna, as I listen to this next question, I just want to show you my chard because it's now at this point. Sorry, and my weak hands are having a hard time holding up the
No, it looks
camera.
beautiful.
So the chard is pretty much cooked. And so just before it's totally done, which is where it's at now, I've got some lemon juice that I squeezed earlier. I'm just dumping that in. That's the juice of one lemon. And like I said, acid's really important. I'm just going to stir that up into the chard. And give it like maybe one more minute or two to come together, and that's done. So you just saw my general way of making greens of any kind. So anyway, thanks for letting me interrupt real quick. Any more questions? Happy to take.
So a couple of general questions. Wheelchair pushing while cooking. This person is asking that my hands may be clean, but I touch my rims all throughout the day. How do you handle sort of how to not get your food infected with any sort of bacteria or?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I think especially if you're luckily, well, a couple things. For me, I'm in a pretty small kitchen. I'm not pushing all that much. Here, I'll try to change the angle so you can see, but I'm in like kind of an, they call it like an alley kitchen. So it's just like counter on one side, counter on the other. So honestly, I'm not even using my rims. I'm just kind of pushing off on the counters most of the time. So that's an easy way to do it. Obviously, if I know I'm going to be cooking a lot and touching my rims, I might just give my rims a little wipe down, a little, antibiotic or disinfectant wipe down, and then wash my hands. I do want to let the rims dry off, so I'm not like touching a rim that had a bunch of like chemical disinfectant and then adding that into my food because that's kind of gross. But honestly, I don't even touch my rims that much. I'm over here at the sink. I might do something. I'm grabbing onto the counter. I mean, I can just kind of fly around in the kitchen here just by not even touching my rims at all. So depends on your kitchen, obviously, but I think just a little bit of thought and planning should be fine. And remember, I think the price of making your own food, and as long as you're being hygienic and washing your hands and washing everything else, you should be fine. If you're really worried, then just clean your rims ahead of time. But the cost of making your own food and making it healthy is probably a bigger benefit than not, and saying you're not going to do it because your rims are dirty.
Okay. So the same sort of astute observer noticed that your kitchen under your sink, there seems to be a sort of an indentation, so it allows you to get closer to the sink. Do you have anything under the sink, or how did you go about creating that space?
Yeah, when we moved to this house, we had them cut out that little bit. And honestly, because the bottom here is that lip is still there, I can't, it's not a full roll under sink, so I still can't get super close, but it helps. It definitely helps. And that was one of the really advantages of when we moved into this house, of this being our own house and being able to make the modifications that we want. We were able to do that. So I wish I could roll in underway all the way. That would be even better. But this does the job, and it allows me to get a little bit closer to the sink to be able to do everything I want to do.
Okay. This next question, you addressed that early on, but the person is asking about washing and cleaning vegetables, especially leafy greens and herbs. So is that spinner basically the primary way that you go about doing that?
Yeah. In fact, what I will do is, now I don't know where my wife put the spinner, but what I'll do is maybe I'll do this on the next session, since I already went through this one. Is I'll fill I'll take the top off the spinner. I'll fill it with water, and then I have another strainer, which is, let's see, right over here. Sorry, so you see this green strainer, it's in my dish rack right next to the sink. So what I'll do is I'll have the spinner in here full of water, and then I'll take my vegetables and I'll just dunk them in here, wash them out, put them into that. And that way I can wash a bunch of stuff at once. And I like to have everything washed and ready to use in the fridge instead of like taking it out of the fridge, washing it, drying it, especially with something like herbs or leafy greens. Sometimes you don't want it to be really wet, especially herbs. Wet herbs means they might get kind of slimy and stuff. So I try to wash everything all at the same time. I think I'll do that in a future session. Is I'll just show how I do that, because we come home from the store or from grocery shopping at the farmer's market or whatever, and I'll just stack everything up on the counter. It takes a few minutes, but it saves so much more time in the long run. I'll fill that spinner up. I'll dunk things into the water. I'll wash them really well, put them into the strainer. I'll fill my whole dish rack with a bunch of vegetables that are drying. And then I dump all the water out. And then anything that actually needs to get spun, like lettuce or spinach or leafy greens or herbs, then one by one, I put them in the spinner, spin them around, dump out the water, and then I've got this nice dry and clean vegetable. And like I said, I store everything in the fridge, or almost everything, clean and washed. So I don't have to think about like, did I wash this? Did I not? I know to myself, if it's in the fridge, if it's, you know, in there, then I know I've already prepped it. And all I need to do is take it out, chop up a little bit. And that way, if I want to just use a little bit of cilantro or a little bit of parsley or mint or put some in my smoothie or something, I don't need to like worry about, you know, I can just grab some, cut a little piece off, ready to go. It's really, really efficient. And I'll show that in more detail maybe next time for all of you.
Okay. All right, next question.
Good question, though. Good question. Thank you.
How much would you estimate the 2 items that you made tonight cost in total?
Is that from Shelley?
No, actually.
Well, pennies, literally pennies, because I used in total probably about a half of one sweet potato, because I used about a third of one and a third of another, so a little more than half. Each sweet potato costs maybe $2, and that's organic. So probably about $1 for the sweet potatoes. Water's free, so depending on what you flavor it with, you know, I might just keep it simple with that and drizzle a little bit of like little taste of olive oil, maybe some lemon juice on that with some seasoning, and just eat it like that. Or I might use it as part of a salad. And once it's steamed and ready, you can do anything you want with it. So I'm gonna guess about less than $1 for the sweet potatoes, and then the chard is about $2 a bunch. So I put a bunch with a few mushrooms, with garlic and olive oil. I'm gonna say probably about $2.50. So not much. And obviously that's not a full dish. I get that, but if you're making, like I said, if you make like pasta and tomato sauce, which a very simple, quick dish that maybe a lot of people are making already when you don't have much time, you just want to throw together a quick meal, that costs very little money, but that's not the healthiest thing to eat or something. But you add $2 worth of chard to that meal and have some pasta with some really nice cooked greens on the side. Now you've got a more balanced meal, you've got more nutrition, and it does not cost a lot of money at all. So
okay, great.
I love those kinds of questions, by the way. Keep the money stuff coming, because I'm so frugal and have been my whole life. I still think like I'm a grad student, even though I haven't been a grad student for 10 years. But I love that kind of thing. And if you guys want more info and advice on those kinds of things, like value cooking, I'm always happy to do more of that. I feel like I've integrated that quite a bit so far in the sessions when I talk about like whole grains and the pantry and how to make things, you know, stretch for as much as you can. But I love those kinds of questions. Thanks.
Okay, and a couple of tidbits on cauliflower. So one person observed that if you eat it super fresh, there's no gas, no pain, and then also that cooked cauliflower is typically more tolerated than raw cauliflower.
That's true, and I didn't realize that. The first question was saying that they were having stomach pain. I don't know if they were eating it raw or not. Yeah, raw brassicas, raw broccoli, cauliflower, that can be a little tough even on my stomach. So yeah, just cook it and see what happens.
Yeah, because that's typically how it's served when you go to parties and things like that as an appetizer, right? Or
Yeah, and I don't get that. I really don't get like the little tray with the baby carrots, which don't eat baby carrots anyway. They're full of ammonia and like there's other reasons not to. But anyway, yeah, when you see like raw green beans and raw cauliflower and raw baby carrots with like ranch sauce, like not my thing. I really don't get it. And yeah, that's tough on the stomach. Cook your cauliflower. It tastes way better. It turns sweet. It turns tasty. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. Cauliflower is also super trendy these days. There's cauliflower steak. There's cauliflower rice. There's a lot of cool ways to make it. I'm happy that it gets a lot more attention than it used to. But there's so many humble vegetables like cauliflower and cabbage and broccoli and like the stuff I made tonight, just sweet potatoes, just basic things that are easy to find, that are not expensive, that are not fancy vegetables. So you can find them wherever you live. You can get used to cooking them and make them taste really good. So,
okay. And one last question, and it involves pricing again. How do you decide on when to get organic versus non-organic?
Very good question. My kind of go-to rule is I always like to compare what the conventional versus the organic is. That's why I was bringing up the cost of some of those things. So for example, potatoes are generally pretty cheap. It might be like 60 cents, 70 cents a pound for a potato that's conventional. Organic potatoes are usually not that much more expensive. It might be like 99 cents or $1 a pound. But even if they're double the price, potatoes are such an inexpensive ingredient that it's easy to get organic. So I don't get organic when it's like twice the cost or 3 times the cost. I'm very, very aware of that. But you know, if it's only a little bit more, if it's only 20% more, it also depends on the quantity of what I'm getting. It depends on different factors, but it's just good to kind of get in your head of like comparing to the conventional and certain things. And also certain things like onions and garlic that I'm just gonna peel and cook. I almost never get organic because I just don't feel like it's worth the cost. Whereas fruit and things that I'm eating raw, like apples or other fruit that I'm gonna eat fresh, those I want to make sure they're organic. Whereas something that's gonna cost double the price for organic versus conventional, I'm not gonna do that. So.
Okay, very good. I hear that your roommate has arrived.
My roommate has arrived.
There's your daughter. Okay, that's all the questions, Arash. Thank you so much. And I'm also happy to announce that Arash has agreed to do these monthly presentations throughout 2021. So he, along with Shelly, are either going to be tag teaming on these presentations, or they're going to be doing their own individual ones all throughout the year. So there'll be a lot more that he'll be sharing with you. And once again, thank you, Arash. And again, everyone, tonight's session was recorded. So if you missed out on anything, don't worry. You'll have it in your inbox on Friday morning once we get through Shelly's presentation on Thursday night. And also, I know what to get you for Christmas. I think you have a salad spinner coming your way. Since that one looks pretty beat up.
Don't get me anything for the kitchen though, Franklin. I'm picky and I like my certain things, so I like to get my own kitchen items.
All right, I'll just get you the damn gift certificate, okay?
You don't need to get me anything. Let's just do more of these sessions, and that makes me happy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Arash. Really appreciate you taking your time and giving up your space and everything. Have a good evening, Arash, and have a good evening, everyone, too. Thanks for tuning in until Thursday night. Don't forget, Shelly's got the fruits and supplements on Thursday night, 5 o'clock, California time. So there's still ample time for you to register if you haven't already. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you all. And please let us know if like I said, if you have any questions or preferences for how these sessions should go in the future. Email and let us know. I'd love to get your feedback.
Excellent. Thanks, Arash. Have a good night.